every single one of us, at some point in time in our lives, every one of us will be called upon to lead. The question isn't whether or not we'll ever be called upon. The question will be whether or not, back to that, prepared. It will be
Yeah.
whether or not we are prepared.
Welcome to the Leadership Sovereignty Podcast. I'm your host, Ralph Owens, along with Terry Baylor. We are extremely excited to introduce to you all Mr. Larry Cheatham. Larry will talk about the power of preparation and its role in success, and he will also touch on what it means to be effective in leadership. And we are live. Hello, world. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Leadership Sovereignty. I'm excited to be here. Terry, how you feeling today?
Oh man, I'm feeling good. Had a good drive last night, and hey, the show is on the road. We on the road. First show on the road.
That's right. Terry's remote from Dallas this morning, and we got a fantastic guest. Not only just a guest, but a great friend to me and Terry over the years. Looking forward to going through his story and sharing it with you. I think there's going to be a lot of great nuggets that you're going to get out of it. But without further ado, I want to introduce to the world Mr. Cheatham. Larry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me. And man, I'm going to tell you something. You know, I speak in front of audiences all the time. It's weird to be on here and actually feel a little bit nervous.
Oh, Larry, you're a natural, man. Look. First of all, we have the best listeners. Man, they're kind, respectful. So I'm sure they're going to eat up everything you got to say today.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Like Absolutely. I said, I'm excited to be here.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, let's just jump into it because, again, we're going to be talking about a lot of topics that are really close to my heart specifically, things that I've learned along the way with Terry and a lot of the things that I learned just for the listener base. A lot of the things I learned about leadership, I learned from Larry. So, he's been a mentor to me over the years. Let's just jump into it. So, Larry, give us a brief overview of who you are, and where you are right now and what you're doing.
Well, first and foremost, man, I'm a family man, so my wife and I make home St. Louis, Missouri. We have a daughter who, thank God, she graduated college.
Congrats!
About a year ago.
Yes, sir.
She graduated
college. I'll be calling for some tips on that. I'll be calling. I'm right there. So yes, sir.
Yeah, and and she's continuing her education though, because she wants to get into nursing. She just has such a heart for serving people, and so she's continuing on. I also am an entrepreneur. At one point in time, I was a firefighter. I spent a number of years in the fire service. But I ultimately became. I fought my way out to get free. Free financially. It gave me a number of different options, and so. Today I travel around the country and I help other people get free. Other people who are looking for a way out, I share with them what I believe, is maybe the best way for the average man or woman today to be able to exit what I've heard some call the financial matrix.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
So I want to say this too, man. And in the pre-show, we didn't really dig into this, but I got to get some stories how being a firefighter is parallels what you're doing today and just the nature of preparation to save lives. There's such a huge story there. How, most of us don't wake up in the morning thinking, okay, I'm going to go save some lives today.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, like real, from the jaws of death that has to play into this. And I got to understand the parallel.
I will say this. I don't know how many firefighters necessarily get up each day and thinking I'm going to go save lives. But I do think that most firefighters wake up each day and say, I need to be prepared for whatever happens, and because it all begins in preparation, it begins in training, and so if you're not prepared, if you're not trained, when that bell goes off, it's chaos. And what you're attempting to do is you're attempting to bring order to chaos, and so people, when you get there, they expect you to have some answers on what to do and how to best help them mitigate the challenges that they're facing, and those challenges can be wide ranging. As a firefighter, you don't necessarily know what you're running into. You might think
Mm-hmm.
you're looking and you say, okay, well, this is just an ordinary house fire, but is there a gas leak?
Mm-hmm.
Are there chemicals, inside? Is there someone trapped inside? It's just so many different variables. Is it an automobile accident you're going to? Is it an ordinary automobile accident? What are they carrying? What's in the trunk? Is there somebody in the trunk?
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Wow.
water in that
Okay.
pond? And is there anybody in, it looks like an abandoned car that's
Yeah.
going underwater, but is there anybody in the car? And it's so many different things,
Mm-hmm.
so it begins with training and preparation, ahead of time.
I
That's
love
fantastic.
that answer. That is, man. So, and Larry and I hit on this a little bit this morning. Not nearly as devastating, or having the level of, I guess, impact.
Mm-hmm.
But we hit on the fact that when you're prepared and you make it a practice of being prepared,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you don't even remember I prepared for that. I
Yeah.
brought it with me. So in my case, I'm just be transparent. Did I
Mm-hmm.
bring that razor? Did I? Man, I'm out to go to HEB this morning. And I told Larry, I said, when I opened up my little attache case, I'm like, oh, thank God I was prepared. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
remember, but I prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So goes right into that, man. And
Yeah.
there's so many things in life that we have to be prepared for as
So true.
fathers, as brothers, as husbands, as dads, right?
Yeah.
And so all these things. So Larry, thank you so much for sharing that, man. I'm sure there's be more opportunity for us to peel that onion.
All right,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I just again, thank you for your service. Right. Terry and I are both from St. Louis. For those who don't know, who may be new to the podcast. So Larry has served the community there for 30 years. Is that right?
That's correct.
Man, 30 years, man.
That's correct.
That is amazing. I remember when I was in the Navy, and I tell this story to especially the people who report to me now that everybody had to train to be a firefighter, right? Because when you were out to sea, the worst enemy you had was fire, right? You can fix almost anything, but if the ship burned down, everybody going down. So everybody
That's
had to
right.
learn how to be a firefighter, and we trained constantly trained so that if the event happened, you just kicked in the gear automatically. You didn't have to think about it,
Right.
right?
Mm.
And I tell that to my teams now, at IT, we train for cyber exercises, right?
Mm.
We go over, hey, what are you going to do if this happens? What are you going to do if this happens? Because in the midst of a chaos, you don't want to be panicking, trying to figure out what are you supposed to do in that moment. You want it to
Right.
be like muscle memory, right? So definitely thank you for your service there too, to the community,
Yes, sir.
My
that
Yes,
we
pleasure.
that
sir.
we
My
all grew
pleasure.
up in.
And I have to say thank you for being willing to put that uniform on and serve this country, because many of the freedoms that we all enjoy, none of us enjoy without someone being willing to put on that uniform and serve this country. And so, thank you very much for being willing to do so.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. So let's dive into some of the things that you kind of touched on. You talked about leadership, and obviously it's been important to you. We've shared a lot of moments over the years when it comes to leadership. What inspired you to focus on leadership as a key driver for success?
Well, I think it's a couple of different things. Oftentimes you're inspired by those who you actually come into contact with and develop relationships with. And a number of years ago, I met a guy. His name is Orrin Woodward, and Orrin is the author of Launching a Leadership Revolution. Spent about 11 months straight on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today's bestsellers list. But Orrin kept pointing out how valuable, how important leadership is. And he kept pointing back to different authors and people in the space. And, I can't help, anybody talk about leadership have to go back and quote John C. Maxwell. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And listen, I'm going to tell you, I've discovered that over the years to be absolutely, totally 100% true. That if you show me a family that is in chaos, disorder, I'm going to show you a family that's lacking leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You show me a church that is in decline, and I'm going to show you a church that is lacking leadership. You show me a government, that is in decline. I'm going to show you a country, I should say, not a government, but a country that is lacking leadership. And so in that view, as I've come to understand that,
Mhm.
I just sit back and say, okay, I have to consistently work on developing my leadership, because every single one of us at some point in time in our lives, every one of us will be called upon to lead. The question isn't whether or not we'll ever be called upon. The question will be whether or not, back to that, prepared. It will be
Yeah,
whether or not we are prepared.
that's good. That's good. That's good. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Sovereignty Podcast. If this content blessed or helped you in any kind of way, support us today by subscribing to our YouTube channel, clicking the like button for this episode, and sharing this content with others that you think it will help. Until next time, stay safe, peace, and blessings.